To be completely honest, I don't think I used Jing Yuan a single time after Kafka was released. I always thought the character was cool, but the way he plays has always bothered me. Over the many updates, he ended up receiving a lot of buffs due to how specific his niche is as a damage carry with a summon that deals follow-up damage. But he never ended up being considered very good despite all these buffs, which kind of says a lot about how fundamentally flawed his design is. In fact, the reason that some of these additions to the game are considered buffs for him is because of his inherent flaws that other characters simply don't have to deal with. I, for one, was prepared for this character to completely fall into obscurity along with the other forgotten 1.0 units, but Hoyoverse clearly had other plans. We've seen characters gain popularity as their teams became more fleshed out, but such a drastic shift caused by a single new teammate is pretty unprecedented. Sunday directly unlocks Jing Yuan's potential in a way we've never seen before, bringing an old underdesigned character back into the spotlight. I want to spend some time breaking down exactly how the developers went about evaluating Jing Yuan and solving his kit's problems in creative ways to make Sunday the best designed buff to a character the game's ever seen, but also highlight how they went about it the right way, making Sunday still functional as a good generalist support. We'll also discuss what this buff means for Jing Yuan's prolonged relevance as we get more summoner type characters in the future. Jing Yuan's entire gameplay revolves around his Lightning Lord summon, which deals damage based on the hits per action accumulated by Jing Yuan's abilities. At the maximum of 10 hits, that's 660% damage, which seems crazy considering the damage numbers that other characters had at the time. But of course, context changes everything, and the conditions surrounding how Jing Yuan accesses his damage have always went against him. Given that he was the first character to ever have a summon, there were evidently some kinks in the system that had yet to be sorted out. Having an entity that executes actions on its own is certainly unique, but it also relinquishes a lot of control from the player. They did try to ensure there was a semblance of influence by having Lightning Lord speed increase with the hits per action acquired, but you'd often be left waiting for the damage to come through, even at max stacks. Not exactly ideal for a game where the objective of in-game combat is to clear as fast as possible. The devs had since learned from their mistakes with the next summoner characters to come to the game by ensuring that they each had direct and consistent ways to action advance their own summons. Many players have been saying for a while now that Lightning Lord should have been able to act immediately upon reaching 10 hits per action because it feels totally pointless to wait for it when you can't strengthen it any further. Sunday having full advance on his skill for the target ally and their summon helps so much in removing the sluggishness that has plagued Lightning Lord this whole time, while still ensuring Jing Yuan has the chance to power it up. Not having to wait for it also means that Jing Yuan doesn't mind nearly as much being able to act while the hits per action are maxed out. His skill is so bad without the additional 2 hits per action that he'd pretty much always rather use the chance to generate an extra skill point, which he constantly needs. Sparkle was a fairly significant upgrade to Jing Yuan's team because of this, especially with her 1-turn crit damage buff having an extra passive to last long enough and actually boost Lightning Lord's damage. Yeah, Bronya is basically unusable for Jing Yuan because her skill's buff will always expire before Lightning Lord can act. Sunday avoids all of these compatibility issues by having a 2-turn damage buff on his skill, which of course is mega boosted for characters that have summons. He also maintains a better skill point economy than you'd expect from such a skill reliant support because a point is refunded if he uses it on an ally buffed by his ultimate. And the final cherry on top is Sunday's energy generation capabilities, buffed up to a really solid 40 thanks to his second ascension trace. Jing Yuan has always wanted teammates like Ting Yun or Hua Hua for more energy to launch ults and get the most hits per action, so of course combining all of these aspects into a single support is the best thing he could have ever received. And I can't forget to mention Sunday's last ascension trace, which removes a single debuff from his skill's target. Even though this is just a very generally useful ability, it's especially necessary for Jing Yuan because they made the terrible decision to make his Lightning Lord unable to act when Jing Yuan is stunned. I can kind of understand the logic behind it, as the Lightning Lord seems to be controlled by him directly, whereas the game's other summons are more separate, but the gameplay implications are really terrible. By today's standards, if they were going to give him a drawback like that, they'd at least try to offset it with built-in effect resistance. Since Sunday is going to be spamming his skill no matter what, the cleanse is really nice to have. Top it off with Sunday getting bonus energy at the start of battle to guarantee he can get his ultimate off early, and it's hard to imagine any character getting such a huge single upgrade like this ever again. I'm also quite glad that despite his clear role as a support for summoner type characters, Sunday can be effectively used with many other damage units as well. It shouldn't be that surprising since most characters would greatly appreciate crit rate, crit damage, increased damage percent, action advance, and energy recharge while not using a ton of skill points, but going in with the intention of buffing a specific character could easily have resulted in a super niche design. I honestly expected non-summoners to miss out on a lot more from Sunday's kit than just bonus damage on his skill. And despite all his strengths, Sunday still has his weaknesses, because there are plenty of DPS characters that don't benefit from the stats he provides, and because he only directly synergizes with one archetype that is yet to be expanded. But speaking of future summoner characters, how will those affect Jing Yuan's prolonged relevance? Honestly, it's pretty hard to imagine that he won't get power crept super hard by upcoming remembrance units. Right now, Jing Yuan is the only summoner who can fully make use of Sunday's buff because Topaz and Numby are single target with a semi-supportive role for follow-up attacks, and Lingsha is a break healer. Once we get a new Remembrance DPS, it's all but guaranteed they're going to have a more modern and better base design than Jing Yuan, so while they might not have the same level of insane synergy with Sunday, going from a higher starting point is likely just going to make them better straight up. Jing Yuan still suffers a bit of identity crisis when it comes to targeting, which is understandable given that he's an erudition character who was released long before Pure Fiction was even in the game. One of the biggest things that separates him from modern erudition units is that he doesn't have anything in his kit that benefits from more enemies being present. Actually, I can't even call that recent design since it's the reason Herta and Himeko still thrive in Pure Fiction after all this time. This might lead you to think he's better suited for fighting less enemies like in Memory of Chaos, but there he runs into a separate issue of his skill and ultimate doing weak AoE damage. Lightning Lord's random blast targeting also feels pretty outdated, as again, it's just a layer of control removed from the player that is often more frustrating than anything else. Especially with Jing Yuan's low toughness damage on his AoE abilities, breaking enemies for action delay and vulnerability is annoyingly difficult to coordinate, bolstered by him usually being the only DPS on the team because of his resource dependence. Lightning Lord finishing off enemies is admittedly a bit easier now thanks to Sunday making Jing Yuan's other abilities do much more damage than before, but I can't help myself wishing Lightning Lord had a more clear focus on either being meant for AoE scenarios or not. I know that was all pretty negative, but even though I strongly believe Jing Yuan will be power crept fast, I still appreciate that he got this buff. Players that have been wanting to use him can do so now that he's more viable. There are probably going to be endgame modifiers that buff him because he's a summoner, and he might still get even more buffs with the summoner archetype getting rounded out. So overall, the Jing Yuan buffs are great. He'll still probably get replaced soon, but that's still a pretty good fate for a character who was on the brink of being forgotten about. Subscribe for more Honkai Star Rail discussion videos, and as always, thanks for watching.